Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. It is ICR Daredevil, back with another episode in our WCW What If series in TEW 2020. It is Thunder, and we've got a big main event here tonight, as was announced last week. We have the New World Order, Bret Hart, Jerry Lynn, and Sean Waltman going up against the Four Horsemen, being represented by Chris Benoit, Ric Flair, and Brian Pillman. So that should be a big time matchup. We also have kind of a big announcement, but I'm not going to spoil that right away. So it could be interesting to see what happens with that. But we are diving into things in front of 18,584 people in the Coral Center up in Ontario, question mark. I think it's Ontario. It's either Ontario or Quebec. But that's right, we are up north for this episode of Thunder in the Great North. And of course, if you're going to run a show in Canada, the very first thing you should do, if you have this roster, the very first thing you should do if you're running a show in Canada is open up with a promo from Bret the Hitman Hart, as the crowd goes absolutely crazy for the fact that Bret's here. It's one of those things. If you ever watched WCW in this era, it's one of those things that's, basically kind of like that, where like every time that they ran Canada was always kind of different when it came to who they cheered and booed, and so they always cheered the Canadians, even if the Canadians usually were like heels a lot of times. So they're cheering the hell out of Bret Hart. Bret Hart says he's glad to be here in front of his fellow countrymen, and that he is going to defeat Ric Flair and the Horsemen here tonight just for them. He's going to dedicate his victory here tonight to every single Canadian out there in the world, and that tonight the Horsemen realize that they are not the top group in WCW anymore, that they are simply just, a minor inconvenience for the New World Order to take over WCW. 99 rating here for this. Good stuff there, as the crowd's, going crazy about the fact that Bret Hart is here in front of them. Then we have our big announcement, as Eric Bischoff appears on the screen back in his office. And he says that due to circumstances, due to an issue that happened recently, Steven Regal is out indefinitely. He is unable to compete. He's unable to make it here for an indefinite amount of time. We're not sure what happened, but he's out indefinitely. And so that means that the United States Championship has been vacated. He says that he, is very disappointed about this, but he did talk to Roddy Piper, and he is allowed to make this announcement that there's going to be a mini tournament, or basically just a tournament. It's not like it's not really a mini. It's you'll see what happens. It's not gonna be like a full blown tournament. It's gonna be like a couple of matches leading to a final thing. But there's going to be kind of a little bit of a mini tournament, so to speak, to crown the new United States champion. 57 rating for this. So there you go. Steven Regal is out indefinitely. That sucked to have that happen. But I have storyline. I have a storyline in mind for it, so we're going to do what we can, and hopefully we can get Regal back sooner rather than later in this. Then we get a 79 rated segment here that gains heat for both storylines, as, of course, we have two other Canadians that are going to be having a match here. So, of course, they're going to have a promo beforehand, as Chris Jericho and Lance Storm make their way out to the ring. Crowd's cheering for them. They talk, Jericho says that he had other plans in mind for Alex Wright, but apparently the bookers around here Apparently, those in charge around here, kind of cough, and he's like, "Oh, Roddy Piper, oh." It's decided that he had to deal with this tag team matchup tonight, but that's fine because him and Lance here, we get to compete in front of the greatest country in the world, Canada, and the crowd pops. He says that the rock star of professional wrestling, Chris Jericho, and Mr. And Lance Storm here over. Lance Storm doesn't really have a nickname yet, but he says that the two of them will defeat Jushin Thunder Liger and Alex Wright here tonight with ease. 79 rating for the segment. Good stuff. Got the crowd hotter. Got some more heat for the storylines. Then they have a tag team matchup. Jushin Thunder Liger, the Cruiserweight Champion, teamed up with Alex Wright, the first ever Cruiserweight Champion, to take on Lance Storm and Chris Jericho. And in a 76 rated matchup, Alex Wright and Jushin Thunder Liger actually pull off the upset in 11-14. When Liger, I wasn't supposed to be submitted, but all right. When Liger, it was more supposed to be like kind of a surprise victory, not necessarily like a roll up, but it was like it was one of those things where like Alex Wright took out Jericho and Liger hit him with the Liger bomb and got the 3 count. That's what was supposed to happen in my mind. So I probably should have done by pinfall, but whatever. But 76 rating here for this match, as Alex Wright and Jushin Thunder Liger get a huge victory over Jericho and Lance Storm here in Canada. So gotta imagine that's gonna have all sorts of stuff happening with that. 76 rating here, 67 from Lance Storm, 87 from Jericho. Hello. So, in retrospect, you're going to get a little bit of a interesting thing with this. The video that I recorded for this, the actual Thunder video, partway through, as up to where you just watched, so up to me describing the in-ring performances for the wrestlers in the ring, my microphone just kind of crashed on me, and I had already made it all the way through the episode, all the way through the show, and got to the next day and saved, so I couldn't exactly go back and redo it all, especially because if I tried to recover from before Thunder, it would have taken me back to the prior Sunday, which means I would have had to redo Nitro as well. So the rest of this video is just going to be me kind of recapping what happened. It's kind of sucks, but that's technology sometimes. So as you see there, as we were in the middle of discussing with this, Alex Wright and Jushin Thunder Liger defeats Son of Impact. Liger had a 58, Alex Wright had a 63, and we're gonna have to see where things go with that storyline heading forward. As I'm gonna have to kind of break this down a little bit. You're gonna see that popping up at the bottom. So that's when I recorded this. I'm going based off of the video itself and doing it this way. So it's kind of what it is at this point. After that tag team matchup, we had a backstage segment where essentially Big Bubba Rogers has some issues with Shane Helms being considered the top, or being labeled as a future star here in WCW. And so there's a little bit of tension between these three, as we're gonna have to see if basically Miss York tells Rogers that he hasn't had a lot of success lately, and that he's really only here to help Shane Helms become a star, and that if he has a problem with that, he can go somewhere else, not even within WCW. He can go to a different company, because his contract is basically his contract with WCW basically is in the hands of Miss York and that kind of thing. So that's essentially what happened with that there. Then after that, we had a Tommy Dreamer promo that didn't do so hot, but it was basically just Tommy Dreamer kind of talking about how he's not, he's been labeled as a hardcore wrestler for a while now, thanks to the working agreement with WCW and ECW. They mentioned ECW on screen a fair amount. And so he's been labeled as a hardcore wrestler the last year or two, but he wants to be known as more than that. So that's what he's kind of planning on doing here in WCW. He got a 59 too, which is pretty cool. Then we had a singles matchup here between Dean Malenko and Dave Finlay that got a 79 rating, as Dean Malenko gets the victory. Dave Finlay had that little hype video on Nitro, but unable to get the job done against Malenko here in a good back and forth matchup. 87 from Malenko, 55 from Finlay. pretty good match there. And afterwards, Dustin Rhodes tried jumping Dean Malenko, but Dean Malenko was able to fight him off and send him out of the ring. 73 there. It lost heat for the storyline, but it, is what it is. I apologize that that's going to keep popping up in this. Like I said, I'm having to record this over the video, so anytime I go and move on the video thing, it pops that up. But yeah, so Dustin Rhodes unable to get the better of Dean Malenko here on this night. Then 50 rated segment here for this, as this was kind of an interesting little thing where Jesse James Armstrong is backstage hanging out with Ron Killings and Miss Janeth when the rest of the Armstrongs showed up. Of course, Medusa's not officially an Armstrong, but she's part of the group known as the Armstrongs. And it's just kind of like, hey, why are you hanging out with Ron Killings and Miss Janeth so much? Like, why aren't you hanging out with us? We're supposed to be, taking over WCW. That's what you said way back in the day, and we haven't done so. And so there's a little bit of tension between Brad Armstrong and Ron Killings here. But Jesse kind of gets in between them and is like, hey, it's strength in numbers. That if Killings and Janeth wants to be on our side and wants to help us out, then that's a good thing. I mean, obviously, the New World Order has a lot of numbers. The Horsemen have a lot of numbers. A lot of people around here have numbers, so it's helpful to have more people on your side here. So that's kind of essentially what happened with that. Is kind of some interesting little tension here teased around these people. Then we had some pre-taped promos ahead of a tag team matchup about to happen. Got a 49. Cutie Suzuki just talking about wanting to prove that she deserves a shot at the Women's World title. Miyaguchi just talking about how she, hasn't been here too long in WCW, but she wants to prove that she can compete with the best in the business and get a shot at the Women's World title as well. Dynamite Kansai kind of talks about being a former WCW Women's World Champion and about wanting to bring that title back to the New World Order, but tonight she's okay with teaming up with Osaki and causing those other two damage. And then Osaki just sitting there kind of laughing the whole time, saying, hey, I know that everyone here in this company doesn't have my back, that they all want this championship, raising up the WCW title, the WCW Women's World title, that is. But she says that she's going to be the champion for a long time and that they're just going to have to deal with it. And then the tag team matchup sees Cutie Suzuki and Tomoko Miyaguchi defeat Mayumi Ozaki and Dynamite Kansai 903. When Miyaguchi pinned Kansai with a running elbow smash, Ted DiBiase accidentally hit Kansai during the matchup. It was one of those things that Kansai was holding Miyaguchi for Ted DiBiase to throw something in her face, and Miyaguchi ducked out of the way, and so Kansai is the one that got it in the face. And there you go. Suzuki and Ozaki not involved in the finish, but Kyuji Suzuki and Miyaguchi's team getting the victory, so might get some more momentum for Kyuji Suzuki. 41 from Suzuki. She's going to get a shot at the Women's World Championship either way, but boy, is she's going to keep needing some work because that in-ring performance is a little rough. Miyaguchi with 49, and then 63 from Kansai and Ozaki both, so that's pretty cool. Can't complain about that. I was looking there for the stuff to see if there was something off there, because it seemed to me that Miyaguchi was off a little bit, but she wasn't. So, it was what it was. But yeah, not too bad of a tag team matchup there for that there. Then we had a Kanyon and Jacqueline interview where Chris Kanyon kind of talked about being a star here in WCW and how everybody needed to treat him as such. And Okerlund kind of pointed out that he's won 2 matches in his entire WCW career, and that didn't sit too well with Kanyon. And Jacqueline was like, everybody keeps talking about the Women's World title, and Jacqueline deserves a shot at the title. She was out wrestling men. She's a pioneer in the women's wrestling, in women's wrestling. She deserves a shot at the title, and Okerlund's like, well, you haven't really been wrestling too much either lately. And both Kanyon and Jacqueline get annoyed with Okerlund and walk off. So that's essentially what happened with this segment here. 50 rating. Pretty good stuff there. Then Steve Austin showed up and said, hey, I'm just because I show up on Nitro a lot doesn't mean that I can't show up here on Thunder. I'm the WCW World Heavyweight Champion. I can go to either show. I can, it's not that there's an official draft between the two, but it seems a little clear that, certain people show up on Thunder more versus Nitro. And Steve Austin says that, he may be facing Sting at Super Brawl for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship, but he doesn't mind getting his hands on the New World Order, who seem to have cowered away to Thunder at this point. And that at any point in time, he will whoop anybody's ass here in this company and still be the WCW World Heavyweight Champion. So basically, a basic kind of promo. It wasn't like anything groundbreaking from him. It was basically, just kind of a basic promo. He didn't really talk about Sting too much either. That's why the storyline didn't advance here. That was kind of a mindset. It was more of just him talking about, the New World Order hiding away here on Thunder, and about how he could still show up here and whoop their asses. Or anybody, showing up and whooping anybody's ass who seems to be hanging out here more, because he's the WCW World Champion. He's willing to fight anybody. It's essentially what this kind of went with here. Then we had an interesting little singles matchup here. It was Paul Levesque defeated Rocky Maivia in 905 by pinfall with a pedigree after Ted DiBiase interfered. I went and looked at the next big things in my creative thing, and these two were right at the top, so I was like, that'd be a cool little singles match to have. Unfortunately, Rocky Maivia definitely needs some work. He definitely needs some work here. He's kind of struggling. He's got a 43 in-ring performance-wise. His promos aren't doing too hot either, so I got to figure out something to get him over a little bit more. Because obviously he's a potential future star. He just isn't quite hitting those levels yet. Even with this being in February of 98 in game-wise. But Paul Levesque doing pretty good. 74, not bad. As he's a solid mid-carder at this point. So we'll have to see what ends up happening with that. But yeah, not too bad of a match here. Just got to figure out a way to get Maivia a bit more over. Get him some better in-ring performances and whatnot. Then we had a backstage segment with Booker T and Cactus Jack. Of course, I'm kind of recapping a lot of this as we're going here because I had everything. I have, basically a script that I go through with these videos. And like I say basically because I have I have a summary script that I follow with this stuff. And so I don't remember exactly what I said with a lot of this. But essentially with this, that's why we're kind of doing summaries with this, however. But essentially with this one, it was Booker T and Cactus Jack kind of following up with the whole Jeff Jarrett and Kurt Hennig segment on Nitro, where they said they were going to watch each other's backs. Booker's like, hey, we've always been friendly towards each other in this company. I have no problem watching your back if you want to watch my back, kind of thing. And Cactus is like, yeah, we got to watch each other's backs because Jeff Jarrett's the type who's going to attack you from behind. Kurt Hennig's the type who's going to attack you from behind. Not that I have any problem with kicking their asses, but they're the type who are going to attack you from behind kind of thing. And Booker's like, you know what? That's kind of a good point. They always are going to attack people from behind. So how about we put a stop to that? How about we keep that from happening by, instead of it being a attack from behind, how about you and I face them face to face and have a tag matchup with them this week on Nitro. So that's essentially what happens with this here, is we get a tag team matchup with Booker T and Cactus Jack versus Kurt Hennig and Jeff Jarrett on Nitro this coming Monday. So pretty interesting stuff there. Then before the main event, we had Eric Bischoff talking to Jerry Lynn and Sean Waltman. Kind of an interesting little thing. Got a 50 as Bischoff is like, listen, Jerry Lynn, you had the Cruiserweight Championship for a while, then you lost it. You two failed to get the tag team titles. Like, this isn't me, ridiculing you or anything like that, because the New World Order is a family. We're here to stop, we're here to destroy WCW. We're here to take over and all that stuff. But I just, you guys got to kind of step it up a little bit. I know you're struggling a little bit. Now with Regal being out for a little while, the rest of the group has to step it up. We have to make sure we all step it up, kind of thing. And so I just want to make sure you guys know that that this victory here in the main event will mean a lot for Brett. It'll mean a lot for the New World Order. We got to send the Horsemen packing, that kind of thing. Then the main event got an 89 rating as Jerry Lynn, Shawn Waltman, and Bret Hart defeated Chris Benoit, Brian Pillman, and Ric Flair in 11:38. When Bret Hart got Ric Flair to submit to a sharpshooter, which is interesting. I did make a comment in the original recording of this too, before my microphone stopped working during it, that it was crazy to me that Sean Waltman was the weak link with a 70, and that Jerry Lynn actually had an 84 in-ring performance, which is crazy to me. Obviously not quite on the Pillman, Benoit, all that kind of stuff level, but it's still kind of crazy for me to see him get an 84, especially in Canada too. But 89 from Flair, 91 from Pillman, 92 from Benoit, 95 from Bret Hart. So kind of interesting there that Bret was able to get Ric Flair to submit to a sharpshooter. Now, obviously, since we were running Canada, you probably expected that Bret was going to go over, but you would have thought he would have gone over Benoit, the other Canadian, or something like that. But no, he gets Ric Flair to submit to a sharpshooter. So we'll have to see where things go with that. Kind of a interesting little thing there. Was kind of looking at, I was checking to see if any bad things happened with it, but there really wasn't. So yeah, interesting little end to the show. It got a, skipping around here, it got a 93 rating, increased our popularity in 13 regions, which is not bad at all. Definitely a good thing there. We came back, oops. Yeah, now I'm skipping all over the place. I was looking at my fast forward button on the video is a 30-second skip for some reason instead of 10 seconds. So that's why we're skipping around a little bit more. But I was kind of looking about how I was talking about how 93 is not a bad thing at all for what's, for this, because we're still the top company in the world right now. We're large size right now. We can let this play here a little bit. We're looking at WWF, who is second in the world right now. And, we were sitting there looking at the fact that they had like 79 popularity in America, whereas WCW has like 94, 95. So it's obviously a big jump. So I don't mind. I was kind of talking about how as long as my Nitros and Thunders get a 90, I am perfectly fine with how that plays out because, I have the popularity in America right now. Well, this is Japan, as you see there, but dang it. This thing's gonna do this, huh? We're gonna do this. There we go. Sorry, again, having to do it this way. But as you see there, America, WCW, we have 94, 95 popularity. So it's one of those things that I don't mind if my weekly shows get a 93 or something like that, because as long as it gets above a 90, we're still gonna look good. And that was kind of my thing is my goal for my weekly shows. Obviously, you'd love to see a 100 rating, but my goals for the weekly shows is to get at least a 90, because that's when we look good. We look good in that sense. We're also kind of talking about here about, looking at the ratings for the night, 9.9 million people watching, just behind Boy Meets World. Good for the second most watched show of the night. I believe here in a second on this. Yeah, so we went and looked at the viewerships, and we actually, this episode of Thunder was actually the most viewed show that we've ever run, with 9.936 million people watching. So I was also kind of mentioning about how we're getting really close to the 10 million mark, and getting kind of excited for that, because it'd be really cool to see a episode of whatever from WCW get 10 million people watching it. So that was really cool. But that's going to do it for this episode. I know it's kind of a little janky with having to redo audio over top of it. But yeah, I'm excited to see where things go from there. So this coming Monday on Thunder, or on Nitro, we'll have that big tag team matchup, which will probably be the main event, which will be Booker T and Cactus Jack teaming up against Kurt Hennig and Jeff Jarrett. We'll also have a lot of other stuff continuing on. We'll have to see what the fallout is with the Horsemen losing that 6-man tag match. We'll have to see what the fallout is with Liger pinning Storm in that tag match. We'll have to see what the fallout is with Cutie Suzuki being on the winning team. And possibly getting a women's world title match from there. And we'll have to see what this mini tournament that Eric Bischoff was talking about for the U.S. title. So that's going to do it for this. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for being understanding about me having to re-record the audio for this episode as well. Definitely appreciate all of you, each and every single one of you. You can follow me on X, or formerly Twitter, at CRDaredevil05, as you see there. And follow me over on Twitch at CRDaredevil, as we are doing a lot more streams, including a stream, if you're watching this on the day that it comes out, a stream later today. We'll be doing a stream, so. But yeah, definitely do all that stuff. And for this series, we'll catch you on Monday for Nitro. And on the channel, we'll catch you tomorrow for yet another video.